Reading The Lean Startup by Ries. Part 1 Vision. Chapter 2 Define. The 7,000 person lean startup. In 1983, Intuit's founder, the legendary entrepreneur Scott Cook, had the radical notion with co founder Tom Prolks that personal accounting should happen by computer. Their success was far from inevitable. They faced numerous competition, an uncertain future, and initially tiny market. A decade later, the company went public and subsequently fended off well-publicized attacks from larger incumbents, including the software behemoth Microsoft. Partly with the help of famed venture capitalist John Doerr, Intuit became a fully diversified enterprise, a member of the Fortune 1000 that now provides dozens of market leading products across its major divisions. This is the kind of entrepreneurial success we are used to hearing about. A ragtag team of underdogs who eventually achieved fame, acclaim, and significant riches. Flash forward to 2002, Cook was frustrated. He had just tabulated 10 years of data on all of Intuit's new product introductions and had concluded that the company was getting a measly return on its massive investments. Simply put, too many of its products were failing. By traditional standards, Intuit is an extremely well managed company. But as Scott dug into the root causes of those failures, he came to a difficult conclusion. The prevailing management paradigm he and his company had been practicing was inadequate to the problem of continuous innovation in the modern economy. By fall 2009, Cook had been working to change Intuit's management culture for several years. He came across my early work on the lean startup and asked me to give a talk in Intuit. In Silicon Valley, this is not the kind of invitation you turn down. I admit I was curious. I was still at the beginning of my lean startup journey and didn't have much appreciation for the challenges faced by Fortune 1000 company like this. My conversations with Cook and Intuit Chief of Executive Brad Smith were my initiation into thinking of modern general managers who struggle with entrepreneurship every bit as much as do venture capitalists and founders in the garage. To combat these challenges, Scott and Brad are going back to Intuit's roots. They are working to build entrepreneurship and risk taking into all divisions. For example, consider one of Intuit's flagship products because TurboTax does most of its sales around tax season in the United States. It used to have an extremely conservative culture. Over the course of the year, the marketing and product teams would conceive one major initiative that would be rolled out just in time for tax season. Now they test over 500 different changes in a 2.5 month season. They're running up to 70 different tests per week. The team can make change live on its website on Thursday, run it over the weekend, read the results on Monday, and come to conclusions starting Tuesday. Then to rebuild new tests on Thursday and launch the next set on Thursday night. As Scott put it, boy, the amount of learning they get is just immense now. And what it does is develop entrepreneurs. Because when you have only one test, you don't have entrepreneurs, you have politicians because you have to sell. Out of the 100 good ideas, you've got to sell your idea. So you build up a society of politicians and salespeople. When you have 500 tests running, then everybody's idea can run, and then you create entrepreneurs who run and learn and can retest and relearn, as opposed to a society of politicians. So we are trying to drive that throughout our organization using examples which have nothing to do with high tech, like the website example. Every business today has a website. You don't have to be high tech to use fast cycling testing. This kind of change is hard. After all, the company has a significant number of existing customers who continue to demand exceptional service and investors who expect steady growing returns. Scott says it's it goes against the grain of what people have been taught in business and what leaders have been taught. The problem isn't with the teams or the entrepreneurs. They love the chance of quickly getting into the baby out of the market. They love the chance to have customer vote instead of suits missing. Sorry, they love the chance to have the customer vote instead of the suits voting. The real issue is with the leaders and the middle managers. There are many business leaders who have been successful because of analysis. They think they're analysts and their job is to do planning and analyzing and have a plan. The amount of time a company can count on holding on to market leadership to exploit its earlier innovations is shrinking, and this creates an imperative for even the most entrenched companies to invest in innovation. In fact, I believe a company's only sustainable path to long term economic growth is to build an innovation factory that uses lean startup techniques to create disruptive innovations on a continuous basis. In other words, established companies need to figure out how to accomplish what Scott Cook did in 1983, but on an industrial scale and with an established cohort of managers steeped in traditional management culture. Even the maverick Cook asked me to put these ideas to the test, and so I gave a talk that was simulcast to all 7,000 plus Intuit employees, during which I explained the theory of lean startup, repeating my definition: an organization designed to create new products and services under conditions of extreme uncertainty. What happened next is etched in my memory. CEO Brad Smith had been sitting next to me as I spoke. When I was done, he got up and said, before all Intuit employees, folks, listen, you heard Eric's definition of startup. It has three parts, and we here at Intuit match all three parts of that definition. Scott and Brad are leaders who realize that something new is needed in management thinking. Intuit is proof that this kind of thinking can work in established companies. Brad explained to me how they hold themselves accountable for their new innovation efforts by measuring two things: the number of customers using the product that didn't exist 3 years ago, and the percentage of revenue coming from offering that did not exist 3 years ago. Under the old model, it took an average of 5.5 years for a successful new product to start generating 50 million in revenue. Brad explained to me, we've generated 50 million in offering that did not exist 12 months ago in the last year. Now it's one particular offering. It's a combination of a whole bunch of innovation happening, but that's the kind of stuff that's creating some energy for us that we think we can truly short circuit the ramp of killing things that don't make sense and doubling down on the ones that do. For a company as large as Intuit, these are modest results and early days. They have decades of legacy systems and legacy thinking to overcome. However, their leadership is adopting entrepreneurial management is starting to pay off. Leadership requires creating conditions that enable employees to do kinds of experiments that entrepreneurship requires. For example, changes in TurboTax enable the Intuit team to develop 500 different experiments per tax season. Before that, marketers with great ideas could have done some those tests even if they'd wanted to, because they didn't have a couldn't have done those tests even if they wanted to, because they didn't have the systems in place through which to change the website rapidly. Intuit invested in systems that increase the speed in which tests could be built, deployed, and analyzed. As Cook says, developing these experiment systems is the responsibility of senior management. They have to be put in by the leadership. It's moving leaders from playing Caesar with their thumbs up and down on every idea to instead putting in the culture and the systems so that teams can move in and innovate at the speed of experimentation systems. Thank you for listening to this part of the Lean Startup. I will continue to read tomorrow. Chapter 3, Learn. Thank you.